Let's go. Welcome in. Tom Stevens here. Mike Melby there, former voice of the Lincoln Stars. Another Husker Rewind till 7 o'clock tonight. And a really good show for you. Tom Chattel will be along with us next hour. 6:25 is when he is scheduled to be on the show. Brian Munson, about 20 minutes from now. Of course, of Husker Online. We'll talk a little recruiting and all the activities, all the stuff that happened in Husker Nation this week. Of course, the big news, Xavier Betts is no longer with the football team. Sounds like the defense had a really good day yesterday in the, I don't know if it's the final scrimmage before they play Minnesota, probably getting close to that. But the defense apparently looks really good. We'll talk about that and a lot of other things. How you doing, Mike Melby?
I'm a little tired, but, that's that's what the last 4 days does to you. So
what did you do? What was your weekend like?
I jumped in the car on Thursday. We weren't able to get broke away to be able to go over on Wednesday, but the biggest, baddest sprint car race on the planet each and every year, the Knoxville Nationals, takes place.
Have you gone before?
Nope, not to the Nationals. I've been over there for the 360 Nationals, which was last weekend. I've been there for weekly shows, outlaw shows, but I've never been there for the Knoxville Nationals. This was my first experience with it.
Who is the big winner of this?
Oh, Kyle Larson dominated. I mean, it wasn't even funny. It was funny because I like Kyle Larson.
Boy, I'd never heard of him. Does he do well from time to
Rumor
time?
has it he knows how to drive. I don't know anything with wheels. You could probably put him in a powerboat and he'd win.
Is it like jockeys in racing? Like my uncle won thousands of races. Is that kind of similar in the dirt in this era of racing?
No, it's not. Kyle Larson is an enigma in motorsports. There are very, very few guys that you can say, hey, oh, by the way, he won the 2021 NASCAR Cup Championship. The Kyle Larson we're talking about. And
forgive my ignorance on racing.
Well, no, you don't follow racing like I do, but he won the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021. Oh, and by the way, he won the Knoxville Nationals and the Kings Royal in 2021 as well in a sprint car. Oh, and by the way, he jumps in dirt late models, which is totally different to drive than either one of those two. Oh, he wins in those. He's going to jump in an Indy car and race at the Indy 500 next year.
That's where I've heard of him.
Well, he's never raced IndyCar before.
Oh, okay. But
NASCAR's where you've heard.
Okay, I've heard of him from NASCAR. Then.
Yeah, but the guy can get in anything and adapt almost immediately and win. Now he's got great equipment.
Where does he drive best? What's his ultimate sprint cars?
Yeah, I would put him up against a race I would love to see. Yeah, let's talk. Hey, you know what? Let's talk the 71 Husker team versus the 95 Husker team, the different eras, or the 2001 or whatever it was, USC or Miami, all the different eras, all that stuff. I would love to see Kyle Larson today versus Steve Kinzer back in 1997. Yeah. I mean, it would be insane, the races that those two would put on. But Knoxville it's an experience, man.
How many people show up for that?
Last night, I think there was about 28,000.
My goodness.
Yeah. It was sold out.
People forget. I mean, I sometimes forget how popular racing is. I mean, some of these events get, 120 plus thousand?
Yeah,
if you're talking about it.
Indy 500 does. Yeah, it's crazy. But
yeah,
it was an experience. We'll talk a ton about it on the finish line tonight at 7 o'clock. Rebecca and I, we've also got Racine Thompson and her husband coming in. Racine is a co-owner of Eagle Raceway, along with her dad, Roger Hayden.
All right.
And we're going to talk all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be a great show.
Mike will be here an hour for the finish line after this show ends at 7 o'clock. But in the meantime, we got to get to the finish line. Try to demonstrate how many topics we try to cover in one show. We cover the whole world of Husker athletics, everything that happened this particular week. Get going.
Let's see. It was a wild week, and I'm just going to kind of cover the top end stuff here. Nebraska volleyball started practice this week. Bottom line, they're going to be a little on the young side, but they're going to be pretty damn good. That's just all. I'm going to summarize it at that. They're going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting note.
And really young. They don't have a senior on that.
No,
roster.
No seniors at all. A sports betting app owned by Penn Entertainment paid Disney $1.5 billion with a B, plus some other considerations for exclusive rights to the ESPN name and use of some of the ESPN talent. Penn is going to operate ESPN Bet. I thought that was a really interesting little buried story that happened this week, especially with all the gambling stuff that's going on at Iowa and Iowa State. So
that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's not going to cause any more harm.
What's the name of this? ESPN Bet.
ESPN Bet, and it's going to be run by Penn Entertainment. They paid $1.5 billion for the rights to Disney to be able to use the ESPN name.
Isn't it weird to say that I know Disney's not directly involved in it, but it's like, come on,
family
kids.
friendly. Yeah,
come on, kids. Bet on your favorite mouse.
Mickey Mouse wants you to place a bet on college football.
Maybe they'll have mouse races.
It could happen. Fred Hoiberg's salary was restored to the $3.5 million a year since he met all of the metrics that Trev Alberts and Fred laid out last offseason. Looks to be $3.5 million next year, and who knows if there's going to be more metrics, whatever. I think they're going to have a pretty good year, and we're not going to worry about that.
He didn't contest that at all. Unlike Frost, he didn't contest anything with his contract.
I wanted it in writing.
Yeah, and therefore he got it back. Also, he had a pretty good year. I mean, they started out horribly, but they ended up 16-16, and I'm pretty excited about Husker basketball.
Yeah, me too. Sad news this week. Bad news. Not sad, but just bad. It's kind of sad too. But Maverick Noonan, a freshman that I think would have not redshirted. He would have at least played 4 games. I think he would have played more than 4.
Yeah,
I think he was a guy that
he might have been a
was gonna
special
make
teams
difference.
guy and a guy that would have played. I think they're talking about playing 25 guys on defense this year. Isn't that crazy? That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, but it also seems kind of smart with the type of defense they're going to play.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
At any rate, Maverick Noonan went down with a season-ending knee injury. Interesting. This came out earlier today. AD Derek Gregg from Northwestern, who might be the worst Power 5 AD in the country. I'm going to say might just to be nice to him because he is. He's horrible. He's not even a good human being, I don't think. Anyway, he feigned outrage earlier yesterday or today over the Northwestern football staff wearing shirts that said, what was it? Cats Against the World with Pat Fitzgerald's number 51 on it. So this is the same guy who's outraged that they would try to support the coach who evidently was, we all know he was a hell of a lot more involved in this hazing crap that was going on at Northwestern. Okay, he's outraged by those shirts. This is the same guy that was okay with everything that we all know now. He knew all of it.
They did an investigation. They're still okay.
He knew all of it. He was okay with all of it and suspended Fitzgerald for 2 weeks. Oh, by the way, it's the same 2 weeks Fitzgerald's normally on vacation. That was his punishment. Now he's, oh my gosh, this is not what we stand for. Dude, just either resign or somebody fire him, please.
Well, he's feigning outrage because he's trying to protect his own
I get it, but
rear end.
Come on. Back to the Nebraska side of things here. Will Bolden, the Husker baseball team, pick up a couple of commits in the last few days. 2025 commit right-handed pitcher Noah Gartner from Millard South. And then yesterday, Cooper Markle of Katy, Texas, although he is a Lincoln native, committed to the 2024 class. He is a left-handed hitting catcher. And as you mentioned a moment ago, surprising news out of Husker football camp yesterday. Xavier Betts has decided to leave the program again, said his heart's not in it. You know what? I wish the kid all the best. Yeah. It's obvious football is not in his future, and you really got to wonder if he got talked into coming back by people around him. But
I'd try to talk him into it. The guy's incredibly talented.
I get it, but if you don't want to do it, then
right. But sometimes you, as a new coaching staff, you might think, I don't know what happened under the previous coaching staff, so I'm inviting everybody back in. And then you look at this guy and you think, my gosh, he's probably the best athlete on the entire roster. Why wouldn't I encourage a guy to to try to play football?
I don't necessarily think it was this staff going, Xavier, you got to play. I think it was people in his inner circle. I don't think it was Matt Rule going to him and going, dude, you need to come play for me.
Right.
I think it was.
But we've all had friends, and I've never been that guy, but I've had friends, and they weren't Xavier Betts talented, but they were really talented in, whatever. Maybe they could play the piano or guitar, or maybe they're a great athlete. And you think, wow, if I had that kind of talent, that's what I would do with every single breath of my life. I would try to be great at that. But I also think that Xavier might be going through some stuff that we don't know about.
What's the whole thing? He doesn't want to play football. So, that's the bottom line. If his heart's not in it to give it 100%, here's the thing that's going to happen. If he goes out there and he's like, yeah, I get it. I don't have to work that hard, and I'm still better than 99% of the guys on the field with me, not just the general public. But if you don't have that edge, you don't have that 100% dedication and commitment to your sport, you're going to get hurt. And so better for him to just sit there and say, I appreciate the fact that he's just honest.
I'm sure there are other stories similar to the Xavier Betts story in Nebraska football history. Not one comes to mind immediately.
Well, we may have never known about them, and they may have been people that are not that level of talent either.
Right. Like, I don't know that that's the case. I remember, like, for example, I first saw Terry Rogers, and his career ended early. And I thought that guy's going to be as good as Johnny or better.
Yeah.
His son is going to be as good or better than John. And then he got injured.
Yep.
So that was a big part of it. I think a lot of that happens with guys that get, like, I wonder if Bobby Newcomb, for example, hadn't gotten injured, how good he could have been. I don't think he would have ever been a quarterback at Nebraska, but he could have been a ridiculously talented wide receiver. Even in the NFL.
I think Bobby Newcomb would have won the Heisman as a dual threat quarterback. I think he would have, and because I don't think if he doesn't get injured, I don't think Eric Crouch.
And he was still good after he got injured. He moved to wide receiver and he was still very good.
I get it.
Remember, I think it was the spring game. It was like the first play of the game. He goes 91 yards for a touchdown. Yep. And I go, wow, well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
This guy is going to be amazing. I know I almost went Beano Cook. Give him 4 Heismans.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Ron Pallas. But that never worked out. I don't remember a similar story, though, of a guy just saying, you know what, my heart's not in it. And I don't have a problem if his heart's not in it, his heart's not in it.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel a little sad for the guy.
It doesn't make me feel sad for the guy at all. I'm actually encouraged by it because he realized what he did or did not want to do with his life, and he made a decision in the best interest of himself instead of letting others influence whatever. The other thing is, though, and this is where I genuinely tip my cap to the young man. He knew what he needed to do. He had to complete 18 credit hours.
21, I think.
And he needed to complete 18. He did complete 21.
Yes.
But that says something about him off the field that makes me think he doesn't need to play football to be successful in life.
It makes me think a little bit in a different way about the Taylor Martinez story. I remember Taylor Martinez saying at one point, you know what? I'm not a big fan of football. I do it because I'm really, really good at it. I'm ridiculously talented at it, but I don't know that he said that he didn't love the game, but I do remember him saying he didn't watch football, that he didn't love to watch football. And for some guys that play football, that's crazy. Like, they are all in on football, not only Saturday, but Sunday, and they'll watch, highlights, and then they'll go to the film room and watch more stuff. And they just can't get enough of football. And you always hear coaches that say, I want a guy that loves football. And
we heard it for 4 years and 3 games.
Right. Well, Bo Pelini used to say that as well. He loves football. He loves football, and I like him. He likes football.
Which is funny that Taylor played for Bo, and Taylor hated football.
Right.
But Bo hated Taylor a little bit as well.
I don't know that he hated. I think Bo just had a problem with the world at times.
I think he still does.
He probably still does.
I'd love to have him on the show just to not even ask him about Nebraska football. I'd list 10 topics. I just want to know what his opinion is on it.
So we'll get to the Xavier Betts story. We'll certainly talk to Brian Munson in just a few minutes about Xavier Betts and what he thinks might have happened. He hears sometimes stories that we do not hear.
Yeah.
And maybe he's willing to share them, and maybe he's not. I mean, sometimes that information is privileged. He'll certainly share information about recruiting. Nebraska, I think, is still, I think they have 24, 25 commits.
24 right now.
But now with name, image, and likeness, who knows how many you can recruit? Because you could put half your roster, it seems like, on an NIL scholarship. I think Nebraska's still over the 85. They're like at 88, something like that. But you can cover that by promising guys NIL money. So you could take them off. That's at least what I read. I think Sean Callahan reported that earlier this week, that they're at 88, but they have ways of making it work in this new era of college football.
Well, there's still maybe a couple of kids that are either injured or far enough down the depth chart that they're going to go ahead and accept the ability to continue their schooling, but just not play football anymore as well. So, with Brian Munson too, the one thing that I definitely want to know as much about as possible is the two big O-line possibilities that are still out there for Nebraska with Grant Brix and Brandon Baker. Baker is not as likely as Brix, it sounds like, but at the same time, Brandon Baker is an Andrus Peat type of a guy. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's going to play 3 years. He's going to be an All-American, and he's going to be a
5-star.
Yeah, and he's going to be a first-round draft choice in the NFL, possibly a top 10 guy.
Nebraska's had a handful of 5-stars in their history. Baker, Steinkuhler, it comes to mind. There are very few that have ever become 5-stars and landed, especially if they weren't in-state kids. I mean, if Thomas Fedoni was close to being a 5-star, but if they could get a Brandon Baker, I mean, he almost excites me more than a quarterback because he can. If you have an offensive tackle that can dominate their side of the football,
that's the whole thing.
Man, that's a really big deal. Something that happened this week is 4 guys were given numbers. You know, that 1 through 9 thing that Matt Rule had talked about, that he's only going to award 9 numbers in the single digits to be worn, and of course that was announced earlier this week. No big surprise on any of these guys. Billy Kemp gets number 1. Number 2 goes to, who was, I think Isaac Gifford got number 2. Number 4 went to Luke Reimer, and number 7 went to Jeff Sims.
Yep.
So they've got 4. I want to talk a little bit later on, and maybe even a little bit now. Who do you think will get those other numbers? Or will they fill out, well, obviously they'll go 1 through 9 eventually.
Well, I think they're going to wind up with 10. Someone's going to wear 0. I'm betting there's going to be 10 guys.
Didn't Tommy Hill wear 0? Who wore 0? No,
Jacques Yant wore 0.
Jacques Yant wore
and I honestly, I think Tommy Hill may have. I don't remember.
I think Quentin Newsome gets 1.
I would agree.
I think, and after that, I don't know. I looked at Anthony Grant. I don't think so. I don't think Gabe Ervin gets 1. Maybe Tommy Hill.
I think Gabe Ervin might be.
Nick Henrich.
I think Gabe Ervin gets a single digit.
Ty Robinson, wouldn't that look weird on that size of a body?
It would, but it'd be awesome. One thing I forgot in the starting gate, because it just happened and I jotted it down. Just a quick little side note. Surprise, surprise. Just like I said it was going to happen 2 weeks ago, Miles Farmer is going to Syracuse.
Miles Farmer's going to Syracuse.
Yep. Shocker.
Yeah, that's not. I wonder if that was worked out maybe a little bit with the coaching staff. That's
well. I mean, Travis Fisher's there, and
Tony White came from there.
It has nothing to do with Tony White. It has to do with Travis Fisher.
Well, that's probably true.
Yeah. Because if it had to do with Tony White, he'd still be at Nebraska. There's these rules you got to follow too that he didn't like. But regardless, best of luck to Miles Farmer in Syracuse.
Hope he has a breaking news.
Successful career.
Any other guesses on who might get the single digits?
I think Gabe Ervin does. I really do.
What about MJ Sherman?
I think he should.
Marcus Washington. I
can see MJ Sherman is a guy, man, that he. It's so funny because you sit there and you look at the Ohio States and half of the SEC, USC's, the power brokers in college football on game day the last 5 years, and MJ Sherman is the guy that comes off the edge. And he's the guy that leads by example. And he's the guy that everybody, he holds the team accountable. And he's the first one at practice and the last one to leave. I mean,
he and Chief Borders seem to have taken over that role.
Yeah, I think MJ Sherman's going to be a guy that's going to get a single digit.
I'd like to maybe go through, if we have time, a little bit later on. But this is Rob Dvorak talking about the single digits given out, the linebacker coach, Rob Dvorak.
Yeah, I think so. I think they take tremendous pride in it. I mean, obviously their teammates voted for them to get a single digit, which also says, hey, we respect you. We respect the work that you've done. We see how you approach the day every day. Are they relentless? Are they disciplined about what they're doing? Are they playing violent? That's what our team is doing. So when they see that in each other and they vote for them, it's obviously an honor and a thing of respect.
Here's Dvorak talking about the linebackers in general, I believe.
I think we're in a good spot. Like I said, as long as a room and as a defense, we're getting 1% better each day. I think that's what you want. I don't know that you're specifically measuring, hey, this is this, but as long as each day we have the same approach, we have one standard within the room, and we're getting 1% better, that's what we want from our team. From play.
And now Dvorak on the second and third team linebackers.
Right now, we just have guys kind of rolling in and out. So my expectation that whoever's in, that they play the standard and they're relentless about what they're doing, they're disciplined and they play violent. That's there's only one standard for everyone in the room. And so that's how we're rolling right now.
He could end up being the second all-time leading tackler in Nebraska football history. Rob Dvorak talking about Luke Reimer.
Both. He plays really hard. He's relentless. He's disciplined. He plays violent. He's a smart football player. He takes a leadership role in both aspects because guys see how he plays, and then guys listen to him because he obviously knows what he's talking about, and he's got a lot of experience as well.
Okay, one more for you, Rob Dvorak, on Nick Henrich.
Yeah, it's invaluable. He's played a lot of football here. He's a really smart football player. He understands concepts. He understands the schemes. He understands the fundamentals of the position. He's done a really nice job, and I think the younger guys really look up to him because of that experience that he has.
Isn't it weird that I'm still getting used to saying even like Rob Dvorak? Like I'm getting to know these coaches. Like Heidi, my wife, is usually very knowledgeable about Nebraska football and all the ins and outs, and she goes, "I don't know who these people are yet. I just don't. I have to listen to your show just to figure out who they are." So I'm trying to help her out.
No, nice job. That's a very nice job. And great comments there by Rob Dvorak. Off the Sutter Heyman text line, unknown texter says, going back to our conversation about Eric Crouch and Bobby Newcomb and passion and all that type of stuff, when Crouch moved to the NFL, they said, well, we need you as a receiver. And the funny thing is, the Rams asked his agent, is he okay playing receiver? And Eric's even told the story, I wasn't, but my agent said I needed to be.
Right.
And then I figured I could probably prove to them that I could be a quarterback. They drafted him as a receiver. He didn't want to play receiver. He didn't have the passion. And, he had his 5 minutes in the NFL on a practice squad, and that was it. He was done. But that's the whole thing. It's not what he wanted to play.
There's certain guys that should know what they should do, like Luke McCaffrey. If everybody else in college football wanted Luke McCaffrey, Ohio State recruited him heavily as a wide receiver. He comes to Nebraska. They promise he can be a quarterback. He never was a quarterback.
Yeah.
And finally, he's figured out he's a wide receiver, and he's going to be one of the best wide receivers in college football.
Yeah. I mean, he may very well be. And by the way, that was Johnny Mack actually off the Sutter Heyman text line. That's the thing about it is I go back and I'm trying to get an old friend of mine that played at Nebraska in the early 80s on the air sometime. I'm still as what do we call it? We are efforting, trying to get an old former eye back. And it's one of those where his dad did not want him to change positions because he felt that his son was better than two guys that ultimately had a little bit of success at Nebraska, one named Mike Rozier and one named Roger Craig.
Right.
But instead, an old friend of mine decided that he was not going to play at Nebraska. And guess what happened? He moved to wingback at a MAC school or something. It's Weber State is where Big Sky Conference. And he set like conference records in receiving and then had a shot in the NFL for a while.
Could you imagine trying to tell your dad, I'm better than these other guys at practice. I'm just better than these other guys at practice. I should be starting. And this is probably not the conversation they had, but, and your dad says, well, who are those other guys? Well, one is this guy named Mike Rozier, and the other is Roger Craig. And your dad's going, son, maybe it's time to switch positions.
But see, that's the whole thing. It was the complete opposite. Dennis wanted to be on the field, so he didn't care. Now, he would have had to be behind Irving Fryer at wingback.
Right.
So it was kind of loaded at the time. But his dad, literally, the story I've heard is that his dad walked in, and I heard it firsthand, so I think it's probably true, walked into T.O.'s office and was not necessarily overly pleasant about what he felt about where his son should be on the depth chart.
I'm sure T.O. had a few of those conversations and handled them pretty well.
That was that. So,
I mean, that's how good Mike Rozier was, though. Roger Craig couldn't beat him out. And Roger Craig's a Hall of Famer. Well, he should be. I don't know how he's not in the NFL Hall of Fame. I really don't understand how he's not.
And I'm going to be honest with you. One of the few times I agree with Deion Sanders, there's an offensive lineman that made it into the Hall this year, and he never made a Pro Bowl. He never whatever. He just played for a long time, and he was really good.
Yeah.
And Deion's like, if we're going to let him in, then I need my own floor, because there's only a handful of guys that belong in the Hall of Fame that changed the game. Right. No offense to the dude. I get it. He played for 15 years, but dude, you're not a Hall of Famer.
No.
And that's the difference.
Yeah. We've got a good show tonight, as we mentioned. Next hour, it's Tom Chattel. Lots of subjects to cover. We'll talk more about the Xavier Betts story. The Nebraska defense really shined in a scrimmage yesterday at Memorial Stadium. But we got to talk a little recruiting with our buddy Brian Munson of Husker Online, and we'll do that next.
If you struggle with joint pain, there's good news. You don't need surgery to get back to full health. South Point Medical and Aesthetics offers breakthrough non-surgical options for treatment of moderate to severe joint pain. Our patients experience little to no downtime from our procedures, and the results are remarkable. They've had 14 years of successful treatments with patients from 35 states because of an effective word-of-mouth traffic. Learn more about how you can get lasting results for joint pain today at southpointmedical.com or call 402-323-8400.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and
sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner?
or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7. We have had some decent weather as of late. It's been rather cool. Today rained a lot in Lincoln. Was it raining when you came in, Mike?
No.
But in Texas, where Brian Munson resides, it's been hot. I mean, it's been silly hot. What was the temperature today, Brian?
I think it was 105. Heat index yesterday was 117. I've seen it over 120 in the last 2.5, 3 weeks.
And what part of are you near Houston? Where are you?
No, I'm east side of Dallas.
Okay. Oh, east side of Dallas. That's right.
Yeah, you guys said that there was some condition, some phenomenon happening up there. What's rain? I have forgotten what that is. Everything down here has burnt up. Everything my wife enjoyed about the spring and her plants and all her potted plants, they're all gone. And now the yards are starting to go too. It's like it's throwing good money at bad.
Hey, Brian, the weird thing here in Lincoln, between like August 15th of last year and June 20th of this year, Lincoln got 7.35 inches of rain. And then between June 21st and like July 8th, they got 14 inches of rain.
And that was right. So that was right before I showed up, because I showed up for high school reunion. I was there the weekend of the 15th. And then I was there to the following Sunday, and then I think it was really mild when I was back then. I loved it. It was the 80s and low 70s and high 60s overnight between North Platte, Columbus, and Omaha, where we were staying at. And then I think as soon as I was leaving, you guys got a heat spell, and I think by the time like I had crossed over from Kansas to Oklahoma, I think the temperature went up 15 degrees just crossing that.
We had 3 days. The heat index was 115, 119, and like 122.
No.
Yeah, it was like right after I left too.
That's absolutely.
Well, thanks,
nuts.
Brian.
Well, it's been actually pretty cool for fall camp. What have you gathered so far from fall camp? I guess we're about halfway over, a little farther than that for Husker football. What have you been able to to gather as far as information to how it's going?
Well, I think there's some positives and there's obviously some negatives, and I think there's still some wait and sees. I think the positives start on the defensive side of the football. It sounds like that 3-3-5. Tony White, Coach Knighton, Coach Dvorak, they have been able to put some things together in very short order. It sounds like you've got not just those transfers and guys that were there like Hutmacher and Robinson, guys that you knew that were going to play a role, no matter what. Those guys have stepped up. They're going to have a big presence on this year's defensive line. But then you get Judy, and then you get that extra next set of linemen, and mainly guys that have been brought in, brand new between your Wallen and Lenhart, and even Van Poppel has kind of had his name kind of thrown around a little bit, which is very, very, very encouraging. And I think prior to his injury, I think, you have to mention Maverick Noonan, and the disappointment, obviously, that he must feel, getting there, and having a chance to really kind of turn it up, and doing things very early on in his career. It's just one of these setbacks, the physical, the mental side of a knee injury. And I think that he could really emerge and obviously looked very, very bright early on. I think that, you start talking about those linebackers. I think that's another positive. I think you talk about having kind of this three-headed monster at running back, which I think obviously you're going to see a lot of running the football. I have no doubts about that. You got Fedoni, who is healthy, that has emerged really as like being your number one guy at wide receiver. And I think, there's really no question about if Jeff Sims is going to be the real deal. It's like he is the guy, he's going to be the man. So I think people have to feel good about that. I think when you start to talk about the bad news, we already brought up a little piece of that. You had Noonan. You've had Prohaska go down with an injury. You had the biggest blow of the entire fall camp with Betts walking away from the team once again. I think that hole that basically Betts creates into the wide receiver room it's pretty enormous. You have a really hard time kind of listing out, 5-6 guys that you can put out there kind of in that rotation. I mean, you're calling on some really, really, really young guys to play a role this fall, and they're gonna have to grow up quick. And it's really a situation where you got to give them those positive types of scenarios to kind of have that growth that they're going to need to have, not just for this season and the role they're going to have this season, but for their entire career there in Lincoln. I think after that, obviously you got some bad. I think this last weekend with the talk that Rule had about special teams, not being up to snuff yet with the scrimmage. I think that's obviously a little bit of an obvious negative that time, but I think otherwise, I think it's been pretty positive, and I think that they have a lot of good players there in that space that they can kind of go ahead and use. They got several guys that I think are going to factor into the return side of the game, so I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on. I think that obviously, you still have some questions, I think, with consistency of offensive line play. I think that depth is kind of getting there. But I think it's going to still start out a little rough. And that's the part there I think I'm still a little bit concerned about. And it's still kind of an open-ended question what's kind of happening there with the offensive line. It's just, I don't think it's helped that a guy like Prohaska, went down and you're still kind of looking for some good luck to kind of come his way. But those are the things that I kind of start at right there, guys. It's just, I think there's some positives and negatives, and I think that's a really big question right now is what's going to happen with that offensive line? Are they going to be any more consistent than they were a year ago?
Brian, one question I've got for you, and it obviously recruiting is kind of your specialty. You know the program inside and out, and you know everything going on a day-to-day as well. But with last year's recruiting class and some of the losses that we've had, be it Xavier Betts saying my heart's not in it, I'm not going to play, or Maverick Noonan, a guy who I feel was going to be a guy, he was not going to redshirt. I think he was going to be special teams, and honestly, I thought he could have been in a rotation where he's going to be a guy getting 15, 20 snaps a game. And just, that's my opinion. I could be wrong too. But what of the guys that are here that are freshmen from last year's class, who is going to step up that you feel and be a guy at the end of the year that you go, okay, you know what? He was given an opportunity because of some of these bad things that happened back in August. Look at him today. He took advantage of it.
Well, I already mentioned, I think Cameron Lenhart is a guy, he got there early. And I think that the big thing to remember here, guys, is that, he's the one-time commitment that backed off commit when everything kind of went south with Frost getting fired and the other changes on the coaching staff. The big reason why, Nebraska kind of zeroed in on Lenhart was he's a leader and he's incredibly mature. And I think that goes, he's obviously a very good player and he's very versatile. And what he had to do at IMG Academy is just a huge example of that, because he had to kind of come in, help out, play some three technique. Not necessarily a guy that you think of when it comes to like playing the three technique, but a guy that could certainly pull it off at a very, very high level. So I think Lenhart is like the first guy I kind of think about. I put him kind of in that same category, as like you would have said, like with Noonan and not going to do a red shirt. I think Princewell is another guy. I kind of glossed over him being a Texas guy. I don't think he's going to redshirt. You got to start obviously at the top when we talked about Betts and not really having a huge hole in that wide receiver room and not be really able to kind of list out 5-6 wide receivers. I think Malachi Coleman plays a role, when it comes to that. I think maybe like a Jaden Doss potentially, plays a role in that. Jalen Lloyd certainly does. I think Nebraska's going to try to find ways to get incredibly fast, incredibly athletic, very, very quickly, and bring those guys, along. It's not just necessarily about all next year. You want to be better, but you want to also begin that kind of growing process. I think that they're shooting for more wins than 4. But I think that they're not going to, it's going to be a challenge to get to 8. But maybe a couple other guys, maybe while we got a second here. I think Ethan Nation is a player that gets really overlooked. He was a late guy in the process for Nebraska. His name showed up here a little bit this last weekend as far as like playing the cornerback position in the scrimmage, and he looked good. I tell you what, maybe a guy that's got like an outside shot to work himself into getting some reps, getting a chance to kind of grow. What about hometown Gunnar Gatula? There may not be a player that I'm like happier about than him because of him enrolling early. It's tough as an offensive lineman. It's tough to kind of come in there and it's a huge leap from Class A football. It's a huge leap from everything to go play in the Big Ten. But I think Gatula has come in and adjusted. I think he had those right things kind of going on and had the right mentality, soak it up, be patient, and then he's had that inconsistent play kind of in front of him. And I think Nebraska, kind of sees him as a future piece. So it is not going to surprise me too much if Gatula, gets some playing time this fall, maybe beyond the 4 games of a redshirt year. So definitely those are the guys that really stand out to me right now.
Brian Munson of Husker Online, presented by On3. Of course, your expertise is recruiting. Nebraska probably at least going to give, I would think, 2 more, maybe 3 more scholarships. Grant Bricks is out there. Brandon Baker's out there. What are their main targets right now?
I think you nailed it. I think they got to find another offensive tackle to kind of go with Preston. And I think that's I think Grant Bricks is obviously they're the guy that Nebraska has been zeroed in on, going back to last season. I think Brandon Baker is, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. And they've had a chance to host him twice before. He'll be back in later on in September. And I think even if they added, 2 or 3 guys and they had another tackle and then maybe like a pass rushing, kind of guy, if Baker wants in, you take a Brandon Baker. That's an obvious thing. I think Nebraska's got this really kind of it's kind of a new thing. I think we're all going to have to kind of adjust to. I think you can kind of always gauge the size of the class because you can take a look at the number of players that are running out of eligibility And then I think you can kind of shoot down the list and kind of say, here you are, second or third year, you didn't have much of a role, not much of a factor. And I think you can kind of take some percentage of that number and kind of add it in as far as like players that I think will choose to move on, whether it's to portal or retire or whatever the case may be. But I think that number now, since there isn't a hard limit, it's going to get more and more difficult, I think, because Nebraska essentially has got this ability, as long as they can manage the 85, they can go as high up as they want. Now, I think obviously you start cutting into some numbers there really, really quick, but we never saw, this class getting much past 20. Here you are at 24, talking maybe about going to 26, 27. But tackle is a huge one. Pass rusher is another one. You've got like Devu Tuataga, out of Utah, who visited in end of July, who's talking about coming back later on the season for an official visit. You have Jayshon Ross, who's a pass rusher, kind of outside edge linebacker out of Liberty North. I caught up with his coach this last week. I think Nebraska and Tennessee are right there. He's a teammate of Keelan Smith, the Nebraska commitment. But I think you really have got those two roles: pass rusher, another offensive tackle, and then you kind of get into that. Is he a take if he wanted to get in? And I think that there's several names, I think, in that kind of list. I think you start talking about, Caleb Benning. I think you start talking about an Amari Sanders, and I think that what hurts both those guys is the quantity of defensive backs already in the class. And then I think you got like a Brandon Baker and a couple of those other guys, the Utah linemen, coming in supposedly in September too. It's gonna get tight, and I think Nebraska is gonna have to do some really hard figuring about how heavy they want to go in this class. It didn't sound like Rule was planning on doing this before, but he certainly has found himself here, and he's had a lot of success up to this point.
Brian Munson from Husker Online joining us on Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket. Brian, I want to ask you about 2025's recruiting class. The way the 2024 class came together was highly unusual for a Nebraska football program. I mean, it's to get that many commits in that short of a span during, from the end of the first week of June until the early July. Do you think that is the blueprint going forward for the 2025 class 26, or do you think they're going to adjust the way they go after guys, or like what do you see them doing moving forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think people look at the fall, and you and I would have been talking about official visitors for the 2024 class, after every home game this weekend in the fall. Well, what are we going to talk about? I mean, you've already got 24 of maybe the 27 guys in. They've all taken official visits except for one, Willis McGahee. Willis McGahee will come back sometime in the fall. I think Michigan weekend is the weekend that he was talking about doing it. And you're obviously going to host a number of those 2024 guys on unofficial visits. But I think the way that it's kind of constructed now, and it's not just the blueprint I think that Nebraska is creating. I think it's the blueprint that everybody around the nation is kind of following. The NCAA has moved the timeline, all the way to the left. You've got this official visit, stuff now that starts really in the month of June. And you basically have this period of time, starting from that same weekend or same time frame in June, essentially then to like the end of July, I guess, or so. And Grant Bricks is kind of that outlier. He's going to go about 3 weeks longer or so to kind of make a decision. But realistically, I'd say a very high percentage of these guys are jumping in to a class. The ones that are being recruited, multiple D1 offer guys is what I would kind of say. And they're getting done in these schools are kind of buttoning up their entire class except for, maybe 2 or 3 spots. And maybe potentially having a chance to convince another guy or two as it kind of gets going, through the season to visit, potentially flip them or somebody that emerges, et cetera. I think what happens here, obviously, guys, is that Nebraska is going to be looking to shut down things with the 2024 class relatively quickly. I think that they want to move on to the 2025 group. I think that this is that time of the year where they're kind of going, we got to get started on those guys. You got a guy like Alex Mansky who's come over, the quarterback from Algona, Iowa. And he's been in Nebraska now 3 times. You want to get him back over to Lincoln as many times as possible. He wants to come in after his junior year. I think you want to get things going as quickly as possible. The 2025 guys, it's really, really, really good group of players in the area, particularly at offensive tackle, which is huge news for Nebraska. They need to really focus on keeping some of those more regional offensive tackles home and getting those guys to Lincoln. So I think a lot less 2024 kind of exposure, more looking forward at the 2025 guys and beyond. You will get those 2024 guys to kind of come back and do your unofficial visits, but there's really not going to be that many official visits for 2024 guys this fall, just simply because of where they're at with the class currently.
Ryan, stay inside. Don't leave the house. It's very hot.
You're twisting my arm there, dude. I want to go outside and spontaneously combust.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you can't do that. We need you back on the air this fall. Come on.
That's right. We'll have you back soon, and hopefully you'll be well, and it won't be 104 degrees. So that'll be good.
The season's almost here, guys. We're looking forward to catching up with you again.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian Munson of Husker Online. 104. That's just crazy how hot it's been in Texas. He's more in Dallas. Houston is the hottest place in the world. I don't know if you've spent any time in Houston, but
I lived in Dallas. Though,
DP came. That's right. You lived in Dallas. I've visited people. I've got friends in Houston, and DP came from there. It's the hottest place in the world. And right now, it really is the hottest place in the world. We'll talk more football, maybe a little bit more about the Xavier Betts thing. I do want to broach on basketball, how Spain went. We spent a little time last week talking about Jerron Boogie Coleman, and I'd like to talk about the point guard position. So shift gears a little bit to Husker basketball. Don't go away. We'll be back talking about football. We've got Tom Chattel next hour. It'll be all football talk with Tom Chattel of the Omaha World Herald. A little basketball talk in the meantime. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, back with more after this.
The Butchery by Venue is Lincoln's premier specialty grocers. Take the quality of Venue home with you with our hand-cut steaks, handcrafted burgers, and locally sourced offerings. Browse our wide selection of specialty products designed to enhance your dining experiences with cheeses, spices, sauces, and more. We also have an exclusive collection of liquors, whiskeys, and bourbons at prices you're sure to love. Stop in to the Butchery by Venue today, located in our Venue at Home storefront at 70th and Pioneers, just 2 doors down from Venue Restaurant and Lounge.
The Ticket Water Cooler.
There were a lot of situations where all you needed was that kind of 2-minute drill.
That was it.
Nebraska never was able, under Scott Frost, to really get one of those things going. The 2-minute drill and the ability to move productively, move the ball, has been a complete failure for Nebraska over the last few years. I think a big part of being successful in that is having a quarterback that can move, and we know Jeff Sims can move. Probably bail you out of a lot of situations.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. That is Tom Stevens.
Hello.
My name is Mike Melby, and
Yes,
if you're
it
watching us on the Sartor Heyman live stream, we truly appreciate it. You can watch us on that live stream on Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook, and on YouTube, and on Allo Channel 951. You can. And then if you want to be a part of the show, 402-464-5685 is the Honda of Lincoln hotline and the Sartor Heyman text line. Always love to hear from everybody out there about anything you want to discuss or, throw some shade our way, throwing some love your way is Claytonia John. He says it's awesome to hear you back on the airwaves. So
we've been doing this show for over a year, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, 13 months, about 14, 15
We're coming
months?
up on 15. Yeah, about 15 months
15 months. So we are on every Sunday. Check it out, 5 to 7. I've enjoyed doing this show with Mike Melby. Just easy. It's easy doing a show with Mike. He's the man. And we share a lot of the same interests, including Husker basketball. We're big, always have been Husker basketball fans. I mean, we've been yelling at Husker basketball players and coaches since the Danny Nee era and even before.
And when you and I were both working for, we'll just call it the network, and we would host the nightly show that they have, and Barry Collier was the coach. You and I, like, we felt so privileged to be able to, talk to the head coach because we were such avid fans.
And he would give you stuff that you didn't get on the air sometimes.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we there's still some stories we could probably share. Statute of limitations hasn't run out, so we can't talk about it. But he was one of the nicest guys ever because he would call, like his show would start at 7:00, and he would call at 6:15 and say to the board or to the producer, he'd call and say, "Hey, ask Tom and Mike what they want to eat for dinner."
Yeah, he would bring us dinner every week.
Dinner every time. So,
and Danny Nee, I remember, and I'm not probably supposed to tell this story on the air, but we would wait excitingly. We would be like little kids on Christmas morning, waiting for Danny Nee to pull up to the KLIN parking lot, and he would get out of his car and come in and sometimes throw us a beer. He does. Here's a beer for you, and there's a beer for you. And
you didn't hear that here.
I didn't hear that. No, I'm not really telling you. That didn't happen. That never happened. I'm kidding.
Yeah, and what happened at Barry's didn't happen at Barry's either. So
Danny Nee was one of a kind. I wonder what he would think about Geron. He liked other Gerons, but this is Geron Boogie Coleman. Nebraska has found a way, at least temporarily, to replace, and maybe things will all work out with Aaron Eulis. I mean, it could, theoretically. It sounds like, at least on the surface, Fred Hoiberg is saying the right things and saying, hey, this isn't resolved. We'll see when it's resolved. And when it is, we'll let you know about Aaron Eulis. We both think that he probably won't play a minute of Husker basketball.
No, I don't. I think his college basketball career is over.
Yeah, but nothing's been completely decided.
Yeah.
But he has been charged with tampering with records. He has a tampering with records charge after an investigation into sports gambling at the University of Iowa and Iowa State, and he was one of the guys involved in that. But Hoiberg has said, we'll see what happens. But at this point, it looks like Geron Boogie Coleman will be the guy at point guard this year. Now, he's not really known as a true point guard. He's more of a complimentary guy. He struggled a little bit when he was at Missouri with turnovers. He averaged 8.6 per game, 3.4 assists per game. He did really well at Ball State under Michael Lewis, who was formerly at Nebraska. He was second team All-MAC. Had 86 career starts. You like the experience. He was a freshman MAC. He was the MAC of the year, a freshman of the year player in the MAC. But they've got Nebraska, that is, they've got a bunch of guys that can play the point guard position. Now, they have struggled with turnovers, and that was one thing that Fred Hoiberg said over and over in Spain that he was concerned about. I think they're going to give Jamarcus Lawrence a try. I think you could see a little bit of Cale Jacobson. Ramel Lloyd could play a little point. Bryce Williams at 6'7" could do the point thing. Who knows? Maybe even Sam Hoiberg and Keisei Tamanaga. I've said Keisei should really if Keisei wants to play in the NBA, he should be a point guard because he's only 6'2". And I don't even know that he's really 6'2". He's fine to be a shooting guard in college, but if he wants to be a point guard in the NBA or play in the NBA, he's got to be a point guard.
Well, either that or hit 48% of your threes. I mean,
yeah, but he's got to guard somebody.
Well, true.
He's got to guard somebody in the NBA, but we'll see how it works out. Are you satisfied that Nebraska can just do it by committee, have the point guard and do it by committee and be fine?
That's Fred Hoiberg's offense. I mean, I get it. I'm more of a believer in that 5 out that he likes to run. And I get it. They got more defensive minded and defensive focused and half court focused last year because of the way they did things and the personnel that they had. But I'm more than fine with what we've got to, quote unquote, let's do the stupid air quotes, run the point.
Yeah.
You don't need a guy to run the point in Fred Hoiberg's offense. You need a team full of unselfish players that care about winning more than they care about their own stats. And with what we've seen from all the guys that are left over from last year's team, none of them care about stats. You don't mean it they don't care, but bottom line is they would much rather win a game than have 30 points in the game. And and that's the key thing that we heard throughout those practices prior to the trip to Spain was that, you had guys making an extra pass. You had guys that took Eli Rice as a prime example, a guy that in a scrimmage before they went to Spain, he went off for like 20 points and was the leading scorer in the scrimmage.
I'm excited about him.
And a couple of guys make the comment, they're like, none of his shots were out of the rhythm of the offense.
Yeah.
He simply took what he was given. And when you're hearing that about, in Eli Rice's case, a true freshman, that gets you excited because true freshmen don't do that, especially guys that can score. True freshmen come in and want to make a mark. They're going to try to do too much. And if he's already bought into that concept of, hey, this is a team, maybe I go for 20 tonight. Maybe I go for whatever 6 and have 4 assists and 12 rebounds tomorrow. Hey, if we win, I don't care.
Do you want to hear my starting 5?
I do.
Because we'll do this about 100,000 times before the season starts. But I'm excited about Husker basketball, and it may not all work out because it never does for me because the basketball gods hate me. But I do think that there's a chance that this team could be pretty good. I do like Jerron Coleman as your point guard. I think Tamanaga is the 2 guard. I think Bryce Williams plays as the 3. Jawan Gary, the 4. Rink Mask, the 5. He's obviously going to start. And then Josiah Alec might be the first guy off the bench along with Eli Rice and CJ Wilcher. So you're talking already 8 guys. This team could go. I didn't even mention Sam Hoiberg, who's played well.
And Ramel Lloyd.
And Ramel Lloyd and Jamarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
There's 12 or 13 guys that could play on this team. So and Cale Jacobson had a great Spain trip.
Yeah, I think there's 11 that can play on this team.
But who are the 11? That's the problem, picking out the 11.
Well, no, not really. The newest addition, I cannot not the newest. Coleman's the newest, but I can't. The taller young man he's going to be more of a project. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to give you.
Yeah, he's not playing this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to possibly redshirt this year. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that Blaise Keita, if he is not healthy, he's not going to play.
He'll have to play in the Big Ten. They're so big.
I get it, but if he's not healthy, he's not going to play. So
I think he'll play.
I don't count him in the 11 until I know that he's healthy.
That's reasonable.
But so I take Keita and I take
CJ Wilcher will play.
Yes, and that's the other guy we didn't even mention. Yeah. CJ Wilcher. Oh, by the way, CJ Wilcher, who he struggled the first half of his freshman year, figured it out the second half, and then last year struggled from behind the arc, but figured out different ways to impact the game and he settled into a nice role of being the guy that cuts to the basket and just kind of does some dirty work. All he did in the offseason is improve his physical prowess. He didn't put on a ton of weight. He lost weight. He slimmed down. He got in better shape. And it showed. Look at his stats from over in Spain.
I think
he's a guy that
he's capable of shooting 42% from 3. He is.
We know he is. But he's a guy that I think could realistically, because of the way he plays the game, he could go for 13, 6 assists, and 9 rebounds, and no one would remember that he played in the game. Because Casey may have had 18 on 6 of 7 threes.
And that's what I'm hoping, the type of team that they have. I'm hoping they have the type of team that you can't guard any one guy, so everybody's open.
Well, that's all.
The one guy that you have to guard is Tamanaga. You're going to have to, as soon as he gets across half court, you have to guard him. Everybody else, you can't afford to because Tamanaga will get loose.
Well, but that's the whole thing. If Wilcher gets the feeling back from behind the arc and he's shooting upper 30s, 40%, Bryce Williams is going to as well. I come on, Rick Mast is going to shoot probably mid 30%.
He's a good 3-point
That's
shooter.
He's
a good
thing.
Free throw shooter too. You're finally going to have a center that can make free throws.
Yeah. Well, Derek Walker could make free throws after Eric Strickland taught him how.
That's true. I wish Eric would have taught him a couple of years earlier. But that's true. I do want to play some of these sound bites from Tony White.
Yeah.
Talking about the defense, because we're hearing that the defense dominated the scrimmage yesterday over the offense, and it was pretty blatant. They dominated the scrimmage. So let's talk about the defense. We'll do it next. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind. More after this.
You deserve the best. With a Liberty First MasterCard, you can pay down your high-rate debt and could save hundreds when you transfer the balance. The Liberty First Credit Union MasterCard has no balance transfer fees, no cash advance fees, and no annual fee. And with a fixed rate as low as 9.99% APR, and you choose rewards, you'll be able to manage your card your way. Visit libertyfirstcu.com. Rates and terms are based on your credit and subject to change. Federally insured by NCUA. Liberty First Credit Union. Banking with purpose.
It's August, and that means summer is winding down and the kids are back to school with lots of fall activities coming up. All great things, but also cause lots of stress. Instead of letting your nerves get the best of you and cause uncomfortable tightness, get ahead of it all with a massage from The Body Shop. The Body Shop in Lincoln is your place for all types of massages. Deep tissue, hydrating, sports, Swedish, hot stone, aroma, and more. And don't forget about their couples massages. Book your appointment today at thebodyshoplincoln.com. The Body Shop at 48th and A. You don't think about your roof very often, but you should never take it for granted. Roofing Service Company takes every measure to provide you with the highest quality roofing solution. Whether it's a new roof installation, roof repair, or a re-roofing project, their overall goal is to provide you with a pleasant experience and a long-lasting roof. If you have a need for siding or gutters, they're your place too. Visit roofingservicecompany.com for more info today.
At first, I was really nervous and intimidated to buy a ring. I wasn't sure what I was getting into.
My experience at Starter Heyman was very easy. I felt like I walked out of Starter Heyman with the ring that was going to make her go wow and say yes.
I love my ring. It is so beautiful.
I absolutely love my ring. I get compliments on it all the time. I always tell them Starter Heyman.
Yeah, we would definitely recommend Starter Heyman.
Yeah, it was great.
We're definitely coming back in the future. Sauter Heyman Jewelers, Lincoln and Grand Island. SauterHeyman.com.
Repeat after me. I will not touch the fuse box.
I will probably not touch the fuse box.
Sip, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Half of the city block lost power.
And?
My chicken condo went haywire.
That's right. The chickens ran wild. So what do we do instead?
Call Joe at Ambition Electric and let him handle everything. Look, saved on speed dial.
Ambition Electric, 402-217-3415. Or online at ambitionelectric.com.
On the block with Strick and Austin.
Donnie Nelson kind of was doing a little, backyard boogieing with
Business
Mark,
on the side.
with Mark Human in the back rooms. Moves are being done and things are happening to which you don't really know about. That seems to me what happened in this situation. Things were going on, conversations was being had at the highest levels, and you're not in on the party.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
I believe that we are still growing. We're going to take this last time remaining and make sure that we know what we're doing. Again, it goes back to being able to self-scout and then say what you're doing wrong and seeing if it's a big piece that we're going to do and we need to correct, or is it something, hey, it's too expensive, we're going to throw it out. You know what I mean? And so that's where we're getting to. We got plenty of film of what we're running. So now we're going back through and seeing what can we do really fast and really physical. What can we add? What can we take out? So that way the guys can just go out there and play right now.
3 phrases that come out of almost every presser that I love. Welcome back to Husker Rewind, by the way. My name is Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens. And we are here every Sunday night between 5 and 7 p.m. If you're watching us on the Starter Heyman live stream, thank you very much. We see all you guys on there and appreciate you watching. And feel free to chime in as well. 402-464-5685, the Starter Heyman text line, the Honda of Lincoln hotline. And we stream each and every live broadcast that happens on 93.7 The Ticket, on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Facebook, as well as on Channel 951 if you have the most unbelievably awesome fiber optics in town, Allo Communications, because I could not do my real job without Allo. They are just absolutely next level amazing.
You own stock?
I should. But the three phrases that I love, and you and I were talking, we need to have like a bingo card, because you're going to get them. They're three guaranteed. They're going to be the free spot. You're going to get 3 free spots every press conference if you're playing bingo with Husker catchphrases, sayings from the coaches. Husker speed, dominant contact, and violent. And
Tony White loves those phrases.
They all love those phrases. It's
coined
amazing.
Husker speed is a big one. I really like Tony White. Of course, we heard that the defense dominated the offense. We didn't get to see anything, but Matt Rule talked about it a lot. It felt like they're going to play a bunch of guys. I guess how would I put it? Am I more concerned? Am I concerned that the offense is not good, or am I happy that the defense seems to be good, at least in these practices, these scrimmages? Well, I'll ask you that question. Are you more concerned that the offense seemed to get dominated, or that the defense was dominating? Because you always hear that the defense is ahead of the offense this time of year, right?
I would be worried if the defense was not ahead of the offense. I love the fact that the defense played well, that they had a good outing. The thing is, the 3-3-5, because I am an expert at college football and football in general and defenses. No, I'm not. What I know is what I've read and what I listen to the coaches and how things are explained by some of the fantastic staff we have here on the ticket. Jay Foreman's done a fantastic job at times. Rashawn, Terrell, all of them, with explaining how
they know football at a high level.
And they're able to explain it in ways that even people like me can understand. Yeah. The 3-3-5, it's simple from the fact of it lets the guys be aggressive and go make a play, but it's not an overly easy defense for them to grasp every minute little detail to the point where they can simply, going back to Bull Durham, don't think, just pitch. Just go make a play. And for those guys to be able to dominate just 2 weeks into fall camp, and fall camp's pretty much over. I mean, they're getting into kind of game prep here, not game week yet, but they're going to start honing in on who's the ones, who's the twos, etc. I don't know, man. I'm excited. I'm happy that the defense is playing as well as they are right now.
Well, I hope they're for real. And if they are for real, it means this coaching staff is really good, because you think about it, there are 6 true freshmen on this defensive line alone. 13 in total. Ty Robinson has a lot of experience, 23 starts. You have Nash Hutmacher with only 2 Power 5 starts. There's a lot of guys that haven't, but Cameron Linhart, who they really like. Princewell Emanuelan, they really like him. But Ruquan Buckley has not played hardly at all. No experience. Kai Wallen is a JUCO transfer. A.J. Rollins shifted over from tight end. Vincent Carroll Jackson just got here. Riley Van Poppel just got here. Elijah Judy just got here. Yeah, you've got guys with some experience like MJ Sherman, but he didn't play. He never started at Georgia. You have Chief Waters, similar at Florida. He played a lot of special teams, but he didn't start. Jamari Butler, we always thought was really talented, but he's only played in 14 games. John Bullock played safety. He has no experience. He's never played in a game. So all these guys, you have guys that we do trust, like Quentin Newsome, we trust. That guy's a really good player. We've seen it. Malcolm Hartzog's a really good player. Isaac Gifford is a really good player. We know that. Luke Reimer's a good player. Nick Henry. So they have guys. Ty Robinson. Those are good players, but there's so much inexperience. And if they really say or mean what they say, that 17 to 25 guys are going to play in a game, I guess I'm a little concerned until I see it.
Well, but Jamari Butler and Ruquan Buckley are 2 guys that coaches have just offered up without, anybody saying, hey, what do you think about? How's this guy doing? They're like, no, these guys get it. It's the proverbial, coach's catchphrase. The light went on for him. Everything slowed down, whatever they're saying. But that's it. You've got guys that are now, and whether it's the defense, the 3-3-5 versus the 3-4-4-3, whatever Chinander was trying to run that was so much better when Bill Bush took over. It's just one of those where they seem to have a passion for it, I don't know. But there are guys that it seems like the light's going on. There's a lot more guys with lights going on.
Here's the good thing. This defense gives you so many different looks, apparently.
Yeah.
They come from all angles as far as blitzing the quarterback or, trying to tackle the running back behind the line of scrimmage. that I think it's going to help Nebraska prepare for any defense that they might see. And if they are for real, they're also going to make plays and cause turnovers. This is Tony White talking about Cameron Linhart and Princewell Umanumelin, the freshman.
Same thing, the continued growth. I think the physicality you see, and that comes from Corey down in the weight room and Kristen getting them bigger and stronger and stuff like that. They're continuing to grow just like the other guys. Kai Wallen has had some great practices. I'm trying to think of some of those other young guys who are starting to come on. Javen Wright Buddha, he's starting to show up some as well. There's some guys who are starting to hit the point where they're known and given the chance, they're playing fast.
He made a comment, and it's another one of those overriding themes that you hear, and it's the work that Corey did. They're talking about Corey Campbell, the strength coach, and the nutritionist, and I cannot remember the young lady's name right now, but
Coggins, Kristen Coggins.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
But they all the coaches continually talk about the strength and nutrition and the program and the job that they do. And it's not just those two individuals, it's the staffs that they have underneath them. And it goes back to, we were talking Nebraska basketball and, team play, and it's all about the win. It's not about me and all that stuff. Guess what? The football program, these guys are saying, hey, you know what? Without this little bit of our team that no one knows about, the strength and conditioning, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the weight room, and how these guys put fuel in their bodies and how they put bad fuel in, et cetera, how we educate them, they're as big of a reason why we're going to be as good as we are. And they're telling you right now, they're why. Well, I love that.
One of the guys we were really excited about after watching his recruiting video was Eric Fields. So it was an Evan Cooper find.
Yeah.
And already, apparently, he is making an impact, according to Tony White.
They're all rotating through. So sometimes you look up and he'll be with the twos. Sometimes, I don't know if he's been with the ones, but he'll be with the twos, the threes, the freshmen. So he'll rotate through there.
Here he is, more on Eric Fields.
Yeah, that dude is fast. I mean, Coach Coop has a really, really good eye for talent, and he called it out from the get-go. That guy is like, hey, point A to point B, I'm gone. And he is a physical as can be. So he's growing. He's learning what we're doing. And when he gets a chance to just, not think and just go, hey, where's the football? I'm gone. You can see why he's here right now. Very explosive, very physical. He's going to be a good one in the future.
Yeah, he feels like a guy that could show up throughout his career.
Don't think, just pitch. I mean, that's exactly where you're sitting there, and that's that kind of the line, the mentality.
And he said it over and over. If it's too complicated, we're taking it out. We're putting in the plays that we can execute at a high level.
And you'd mentioned you and I we didn't watch the film together, but I think you and I watched the same handful of clips of Eric Fields, and I believe we were texting back and forth, and one of us made the comment, like it genuinely felt like he had like the speed boost in Madden or something. Yeah. I never played Madden a ton, but like he had whatever speed, but you could hit the diamond and it would make him twice as fast as he normally was.
Yeah.
But in the film, it literally was like there was a bunch of guys going as fast as they could, and they simply took Eric Fields out of it and put him back in, but double the speed that he was because he was so much faster than everybody else.
And I know he was a tweener, but you watch his tape and you go, how does a guy like that just get under-recruited? How does he get lost in the shuffle?
Yeah.
Because that guy is so fast. I mean, it's like you're watching Terrell Farley or, name your favorite Husker linebacker, Levante David. I mean, that guy just flies all over the place.
Yeah.
And Nebraska got him, and apparently he's the real deal because they're really excited about him. This is Tony White talking about everybody's favorite subject. How do you hand out the black shirts?
Yeah, I got an idea. Yeah. No, I've talked to some great voices. I mean, I talked to Coach McBride, talked to Carragher, Bullocks. I talked to, you name it. If they said they wore the black shirt, the first question I asked, hey, come on over here, step into my office real fast. Like, let me tell me, educate me on how this was. And I have an idea, but I'm going to make sure I talk to Coach Rule, and then we'll do it. We'll do it as we do it.
So in my mind, that answer from all the DCs that we have had ever since 2004, 2005, that is the best answer from any of those defensive coordinators on how he is going to handle it. You know how I'm going to handle it? I'm going to ask as many former black shirts what they think.
And I think other coaches have said that they do the same thing as well.
But it was always they're going to get, and I mean, Coach McBride is always the fallback, but the fact that he genuinely, I don't know, it just feels different coming from Tony White.
Yeah, I hope it looks different too. The black shirts haven't been the black shirts for a long time. Matt Rule had an interesting answer when asked about the black shirts a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was just last week. He said he talked to Tom Osborne about how you handed out the black shirts. And he said, well, Matt, we picked the guys that started the game and we gave them a black shirt. That's kind of how we did it. So, but now it's become much more complicated because defensive has really changed since then. Nebraska ran a 4-3, and sure, there were certain sub packages, but now you've got guys that start in one package and they start in a different package. And when you've got, because of the spread offenses, defenses have had to adjust to that. And so you might have 14 guys that are starters based on the package. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was it Kevin Cosgrove or was it one of the Pellinis that like one year we had like 27 black shirts?
Yeah. Well, and then he took them all away one year.
Yeah. I always thought that, like, that's losing sight of the actual tradition.
Yeah. But when you're that bad, I mean, they took them all away last year for a period of time. And I thought that Mickey Joseph did the right thing by taking them all away for a while. And I think they got better and better and better with Bill Busch as the defensive coordinator, and they gradually gave them back. But I don't think they gave back all of the black shirts until late in the season, as I remember. Let's get to break. And because I want to have extra time to talk to Tom Chattel.
Well, this will be the first time we've had Tom Chattel on the air, and I'm looking forward to it.
Has he been covering Nebraska football for 50 years yet? I mean, we've been covering Husker football for 30 years.
We can double check, but I want to say that 1979 may have been, and it would have been when he was at Missouri. Would have been when he started covering college football.
Okay.
I
he was at Missouri. That's right. He was working for the Kansas City Star. We could actually ask him those questions. I mean,
before we jump to Tom, I want to preface another brand new guest that we're going to have. I think I've already got it lined up for next week. We're going to have Amy Just from the Lincoln Journal-Star on 525 next week, and I'm stoked. You and I, we read all the articles that she writes, and we're like, we have got to get her on the air. She is amazing, the stuff that she writes. So that's going to be next week here on Husker Rewind.
Before we get to break, it's interesting. The NCAA says they're still investigating Jim Harbaugh over recruiting violations. He had agreed or wanted to agree to a 4-game suspension, and maybe new evidence has come to their attention or something, because now they're saying, I don't know that we want the 4-game suspension that you agreed to, that we never really agreed to.
And by the way, it's not about a hamburger. The fact that they put in the specific point about it's not about a hamburger into their public statement cracked me up.
Yeah, it's not about, remember Eric Crouch ate a ham sandwich on a plane ride? And that kind of makes me think of the hamburger incident. Yeah. It's not about a hamburger. They're investigating impermissible phone calls and texts to high schools.
Oh, to Eric House. Oh, wait a minute.
It makes you think a little bit of Ernest Hausman, because how did he just end up on that roster? But I'm sure it was all legit on the part. In that instance, I'm sure it was all legit by Harbaugh.
You're sure?
No, not at all. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the guy can do whatever he wants to because he's 74-25. He's made 2 straight college football playoffs, and he's beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row.
Yeah, but he can do whatever he wants inside the state of Michigan or inside Ann Arbor, not inside the realm of the NCAA. So.
Oh, he's a jerk, but he's as if he were our coach, I'd say, yeah, but he's our jerk. He's our jerk because he wins. Let's get to break. Talk to Tom Chattel of the Omaha World Herald next.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Load up on meat and more this summer at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese at 84th and Haviland. This week's specials through August 15th are $2 off packaged grass-fed, grass-finished New York strip with limit of 2 per visit. And don't forget to check out their Friday feast this week and every week. Plus, big news, they have 2 new locations now open at 30th and Yankee Hill in Lincoln and 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down. Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
I think it's just vapor. Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous. 5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, the big one, all the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. Next, I put it in reverse. Beep, beep, beep.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Scott Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 until 7. As we welcome in a legend for the Omaha World Herald. We were talking to one another, Tom. How long have you been with the Omaha World Herald? When did you start at the World Herald?
Oh, I can't remember. It's not far, but no. I'll never forget it. It was September 1st, 1991.
1991. And at that time, I think Nebraska had gone through, 6 or 7 straight seasons without winning a bowl game.
Yeah, it was a completely different vibe. In fact, they finished the previous year losing 3 straight. They had the painful collapse in Colorado in the rain, and then they lose at Oklahoma when Mickey Joseph runs into the bench, and they got blown out, and then they go to the Citrus Bowl. And the Georgia Tech they beat them. So that was when they started the Unity came out. I came right in when all this stuff was happening, and Tom Osborne was telling people he was going to get fired, and it was just a lot of drama. But and Colorado had beat them 2 years in a row and was kind of on top, and so it was. And the starting quarterback, Mickey Joseph, going into the opener. I think I played Utah State, and he got hurt, or he just had a bad half. But they brought in Keaton McCant, and I looked at Keaton McCant was going to be the guy. And everybody said I was stupid and go back to Missouri, and it's been a lovely 32 relationship ever since.
I remember Tom Osborne. I think it was the 92 class or the 93 class. he went to the media, and I'm sure you were there. He said, "This is the best we can do as far as recruiting." And and those classes ended up winning 4 or 5 national championships, or 3 national championships, 60-3.
I always loved Tom's. He had a certain knack for the backhanded compliment, but he didn't. He never meant it. He was never mean about it. He wasn't trying to insult anybody. He just had one time he talked about Matt Turman. He said, "Well, he's not the worst."
Was that the week before the K-State game?
I don't know what it was, but it was just so funny. And he said to after the '95 team, after they hammered Michigan State up in Lansing, he's shaking Nick Saban's hand and says, "You're not as bad as you think." I mean, I love that. So yeah, he that was whatever he the thing about the recruiting thing. As soon as they got Tommy Frazier that year, I mean, he was the guy they had to have. I'm not one who really gets into recruiting hype, but that was one where you could say he was absolutely worth the hype.
Yeah, he really was.
Is there anybody that is in the current 23 freshman class that's on campus now, or anybody that's in the 24 class committed to Nebraska right now that you feel is a guy that is worth the hype?
Oh, yeah. I hate this. I don't really follow the hype. I follow high school ball, but I never really try to get into that. I will say, I really think that Daniel Kalin is a guy who could be as good as the hype, and but also was a guy who, when he came here, it was such a big switch and a big endorsement of Rule that because he was local and he decided to jump on board. I think he helped bring some others, and I think other guys in that recruiting class followed his endorsement. So, I'm anxious to see him. This is really a strange season, guy. People have been asking me. Of course, they always ask me, but what's going to happen? And I just have no feel for it. I just have zero feel for what we're going to see, and I think it's going to be better in some ways, but I'm not sure they have enough players or enough depth to really make a big move. So I don't know.
And it's been kind of a weird couple of weeks. First, you had Bob Wager resigning after a DUI. You had Miles Farmer leaving the team, and now Xavier Betts. Has this been a big deal as far as distractions, do you think, or is it just a bump on the road?
Yeah, I think it's a bump. The Farmer thing, I mean, they knew he wasn't going to be around at least until they brought him back. So, and I think there are going to be certain guys where you've got to lay down the law early. You can't let the players dictate what happens. There has to be if you're going to have a culture, if you're going to have a winning culture, you got to establish early that everybody's accountable. I don't know what was going on. It sounded like Rule wanted that he's welcome back, and we respect him as a man. I wasn't sure what that meant, but so yeah, I think that was probably. I mean, it's tough to lose a guy. Like, you can't, you got to have players to win. But I think this first year is more importantly about how they're going to play and what kind of standard they're going to have. And I really think that the record, I mean, they need to go to a bowl game at some point. I really think that the record is almost secondary to what kind of foundation they're going to lay this year. And I think they can do both. I think that they can go to a bowl game and also set that foundation.
Tom Chattel from the Omaha World Herald joining us here on Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket. Tom, I want to take you back to your days at Missouri and living in the dorms. When you
There you
heard
go.
what you heard that Matt Rule was going to take the team for 2 weeks and go to the Sell It Quadrangle, what were your thoughts? Did it bring back any good memories, bad memories? What are your thoughts on him doing that?
Well, I just moved my freshman daughter into her KE dorm yesterday, so all that stuff is still very fresh in my head. When it comes to dorms, I just hope they all had better roommates than I did, because I had a terrible first roommate. And after the first semester, which I hated, I switched immediately to somebody else on the dorm floor that I liked, and then I suddenly had a better experience. So, it's all relative. I like that. I like any kind of team bonding. I don't know if you necessarily have to the Junction Boys and take everybody to another town. You don't need to go to McCook or Kearney or somewhere and hope and get out of town. But I think I like the idea of being in the dorm together. And, kind of roughing it. Kind of trying to put the phones down. That's so hard to do. But I think right now every little bit helps. And but I think training camp can bond you. I really think going through a season is what does it. And you find out who you can rely on and who's got who's back. And it's just going through the wins and losses, the ups and downs is what bonds a team, I think. But I really think that was a good move.
Tom Chattel of the Omaha World Herald is our guest. It feels like a tricky thing trying to build a culture. You put them in dorms and you try to be a little tough, but you don't want to go too tough. And I like the idea of the number thing. You think that's a big deal? Saving the 1 through 9 numbers for certain players who you think have earned it during fall camp.
I don't know. I was kind of I'm interested to see how that goes. When it all comes down to it, it may not mean anything, but I really think anytime you can create standards, it's a good thing. I think every program needs standards, and I don't think this program has had nearly enough standards over the years. And I think that the black shirts has been a standard that has been too easy to come by. What I'd like to see is, if you're going to do this, the offensive linemen can't be part of this, can they?
No,
they can't be single-digit guys, right?
Right.
Well, they can't. So
I love the big guys. I love the big uglies. So why not take somebody like one of the all-time greats and say, okay, if you're a quarterback, say you're going to be number 15 or number 7. If you're an offensive lineman, you're going to be number 50, or you might be 72. You know who all these guys are, right?
Yes.
Sure. And,
sure. We're old. Yeah, we're very old. We do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just saying, why not take different, like the legends of each position, and or the position group, and say, okay, the leader or the guy who sets the standard is going to get that number. So on the other hand, I kind of like these guys, establishing, new numbers too. But there aren't a lot of numbers left that aren't famous, really. Right. But I don't know. I just think if don't leave my offensive lineman now. You can have to be, they can't be number 8. They can't do it. So what's the tight end going to do? I guess he's number 4 or 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's actually one of the best spins on the tradition that I've heard, because you should it's an honor for these guys to get voted by their teammates to be able to get a single digit. And they, Matt Rule talked about, I've never seen a lineman get as many votes as Ethan Piper did. Well, Tom, you need to go sit down with Matt and explain what needs to happen. He needs to wear 50 this year if he got that many votes.
There you go.
As soon as the first time a coach ever listens to a sports writer, I'll do it.
What's your take on realignment? Obviously, we know that the USC and UCLA are coming along with Oregon. and Washington. I heard Trev Albert say it's going to be odd for a tennis player to have to fly from, California to go play Rutgers in a tennis match. That maybe this thing should be done just for football and leave everything else out of it. What do you think?
Well, I think the best plan I heard, the first time I heard it, was from a basketball guy. It was Creighton Athletic Director Bruce Rasmussen, the former AD. We were talking about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and he said all the football people should go do the football thing over here and form their own however many school division or conference, and kind of have their own rules. And if they want to pay players, they can. If they do the playoff any way they want to, and just go be football over here, and then let the basketball, the baseball, and everybody else on down go back to the regions where my antenna went immediately up. I said, we could have the Big 8 again. And he goes, yes. You could have the Pac-8 or Pac-10. Yeah. You could have the Southwest Conference again. And I love that idea. I think a lot of these sports ought to be in a bus, including basketball. Get on a bus and go down to KU. Get on a plane and go to Rutgers. It makes no sense. So I just can't understand. I don't know how it works. I can't get to that point where I figure out, okay, this is what we should do, but how is it going to happen? For instance, if you put everybody into a football pile, whatever, for lack of a better word, and over here in this giant division of 40 to 50, whatever, of the football schools, how do they all make the same money? I don't see the Big Ten or SEC ever agreeing to that, ever. Yeah. And, that's the way it should be. That was Chip Kelly's idea. Let's just make it the NFL and put everybody in like AFC West or NFC West division. The Pac schools go out there and stay there, and everybody makes the same money. It's a great idea, but why would the SEC do that? And I also think, the Big Ten might agree to throw all those schools into a group with everybody else. But I can't see the SEC ever letting go of SEC football. It means too much. I just don't. This idea is perfect, but it's just SEC will never agree to it, and they're the main people to get involved. Yeah. So now also I don't know who's going to run the smaller conferences. Are they going to have to hire a commissioner for all the basketball and the baseball leagues and where's the money going to come from? How are they going to pay for all this stuff? It's the money for all these conferences comes from football. So it's a really complicated thing. I just think we're going to have a Big Ten and SEC. I wrote this last week. I think there's going to be a Big Ten and an SEC, and they're going to somehow get together. The networks will bring them together. You say, how will it happen? The networks will do it to make it worth their while. Yeah. And how much pull is ESPN going to have? How much money are they going to have in their current state is a great question. So I do think the Big Ten isn't done. I think they're going to go after the ACC. I could see Florida State, Clemson in the Big Ten one day. I probably think they belong to the SEC, but Fox, NBC, CBS will have more money to throw in. So, and then they'll try to the Big Ten will try to break up, or Fox, whatever, will try to break up the ACC to get Notre Dame in. So, I think a lot of drama left. Maybe by 2030, I don't know if we can all hold on that long.
Well, and to your point, I think Florida State would take an invitation to the Big Ten for 2024 and come in with the Pac-12 schools right now. Right. Tom Chichel from the Omaha World Herald joining us on Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket. Tom, before we let you go, I want to ask you a little bit about fall camp. Scrimmage yesterday, defense dominated. What's that say to you?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of anything. I think it's too early just to really say one is, but they always say the defense is usually ahead, but I don't know much about Marcus Setterfield's offense or what they're going to do. He's talked about about going run heavy. I think that's the way to go. I think given Jeff Sims's turnover pass and the lack of depth and playmakers in the receiver room, I think this is going to be a running team this year. I think Matt Rule, you go to your strength. He's going to try to get his first team. Again, this is a building year. There's not that much writing on it. They want to build. They want to go to a bowl game. They want to go to a bowl, and they want to build off that and recruit off that. But I think this has to be a running year. I think you've got a quarterback who can run, and a lot of depth at running back. I think the offensive line might be built for this, and I think the offensive line is it's been ignored too long. It's time to build another pipeline. And make it built to last for a long time. Because they won't do anything going forward without an offensive line. But I think this may come together in the next few weeks. I think the strength of this team, I think, is going to be the running backs and the line and the running quarterback. Now, certainly the tight ends, but the tight ends kind of fit into that style of you run the ball, you throw at the tight ends. And I really think time of possession, keeping the ball will help the defense as well. So I really think they're going to have to really negotiate the season and get the 6 wins. I think running the ball will be the best way to do it. Defensively, that line is they're going to have to, Tony White's going to have a little magic and a little hocus pocus, I think, to get that line, because a lot of teams are getting Big Ten are going to run right at them and try to. So they're going to have to come up with some games and all the things I don't understand. So
we're right there with you.
Yep,
we don't understand any of it.
Who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
But 18 days until we maybe understand a little more about what's going to go on this season. We appreciate the time, Tom. We'd love to have you back maybe during this season.
Hey, anytime. Let me know. Thanks.
All right, there you go.
Guys.
Thanks,
Tom
sir.
Chutel of the Omaha World Herald, longtime columnist. He started in 1991.
At
what
Nebraska.
A perfect time to start at Nebraska.
No,
I mean, because it was looking bleak at that time. I remember Tom Osborne lost 7 straight bowl games, and they wanted to fire him. And Tom Chutel wrote some pretty harsh articles at that time. And then those recruiting classes led to, Tommy Frazier and the Magic 60-3.
The thing that I always am just fascinated by with the way Tom writes, and he looks at things in such a different way. And sometimes it's, you open up the fridge and the milk's right here, and you're like, honey, I can't find the milk. That's me, by the way. And Tom just said something really obvious. And it's kind of what other people have alluded to, but he just told me where the milk carton was. He said Jeff Sims has had some turnover issues. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we all know that.
So the receiver room is not necessarily where you would want it to throw the ball around the field, 45 times a game. But that's the thing, is you combine the turnover issue with the little bit lack of proven depth. Billy Kemp aside, right? There's not a ton of proven
Marcus
depth.
Washington.
And Marcus Washington and Joshua Fleeks as well. But, it's pretty thin experience-wise. After that, they're going to run the ball. But that's the whole thing, is I kind of never put that Jeff Sims had to pinch it for turnovers at Georgia Tech. So they should run the ball more often to make sure to get him safe throws, high
Hit
percentage
the tight ends.
throws.
Thomas Fodoni's good. Borkircher's good.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that Eric Gilbert get the waiver, and he hasn't gotten the waiver yet. I think Matt Rule said if he doesn't get the waiver, then they should just discontinue the waiver process.
I think Matt Rule is going to fight someone if Eric Gilbert does not get the waiver.
They don't have enough wide receivers, so go with your tight ends. Usually, I think Eric Gilbert getting a waiver would really help. But they're going to have to be a running team, and they're going to have to do everything right and not have a lot of penalties and play really well on special teams just to get to 6 wins. It feels like that type of year.
Two of those things they struggled with this last yesterday in the scrimmage with
There you
special teams were not great and procedures were an issue for the offense again.
Let's talk a little golf. It's going to a playoff. We won't spend a ton of time on golf as we head out, but it is going to a playoff. Lucas Glover and somebody else is playing.
Forgive my ignorance, but what tournament is it? It's not a major.
It's the playoffs. It's the FedEx playoffs.
Okay.
It's the St. Jude Classic.
Okay. I was going to say I didn't know what tournament.
We
it
won't
was.
talk a ton of golf. We'll just like a minute or two of golf because the text line will get mad and everybody will get mad if we talk much golf. But I just, me, I've got to look at the screen and see what's going on. We'll talk about a few other things as we head out. We only have about 10 minutes left in the show, less than that actually. And then it's the finish line at the top of the hour, but more after this.
Too many people believe that chronic pain, allergies, or illness are permanent and something you're stuck with. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness has been proving that narrative wrong for 29 years and changing lives for the better in the process. Their team is trained in the newest, most advanced pain-relieving techniques and ways to deal with toxins, allergies, pollution, and emotion that make you ill. Call today for a free consultation at 531-254-5695 or go to novotnynutritionandwellness.com. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness, located at 7th and Superior.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay. Playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
The Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, Nebraska National Guard, 55th Wing, and the Lincoln Airport Authority presents the Guardians of Freedom Air Show, featuring the U.S. Navy Blue Angels, the F-16 Viper demo team, F-35, and the Air Force Wings of Blue. Experience a spectacle that your family will remember forever. The Guardians of Freedom Air Show, Saturday, August 26th and Sunday, August 27th at Lincoln Air Park. Parking and admission are free. Learn more at lincolnairshow.com.
This is Bud Seinhorst, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour, as we discuss local business and highlight those who are thriving in the Lincoln area. It's the LIBA Business Hour, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Our lives only have so much time, but if you smoke, you have less. Your life could be 10 years shorter, and the time you do have is often filled with health problems, shortness of breath, asthma, COPD, and cancer. But the minute you quit, your body starts healing.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you want to come and text us,
If you love them enough to turn on your music and pretend like their music is your music,
This is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The FedEx Cup is going on. This is the playoffs, the FedEx playoffs. I find golf really fascinating, so I won't talk a lot about golf, but Lucas Glover and Patrick Cantley are headed to a playoff tied at 15 under. Lucas Glover, an interesting story. He's won a U.S. Open and then just had the yips. We've all had the yips, but he could not hit. There was an instance where he was going for 59 and missed a putt from 1 foot. I mean, like 1 foot. And recently he was like at 60th and in the top 50th or top 75 make the FedEx. But he was outside even contention for the playoffs and switched putters just like 3 months ago. And now he's just gone on a tear with the long putter. Have you ever considered the long putter?
Not a chance. I hate those. I think they should be outlawed. Any putter that is
well, you can't anchor them anymore.
I don't care. Any putter that is longer than 34 inches, outlawed.
There are certain guys on tour, like if they had a designated putter, they would be like Ernie Els should have won 15 majors, but he couldn't putt. Especially late in his career, he couldn't make a 3-foot putt. Fred Couples could not putt to save his rear end. The best ball striker maybe in the history of golf.
Yeah,
but he just could not putt, and so some guys just can't, and it's pretty important to the game.
I think the PGA Tour ought to implement a rule that is an equipment change. Every golfer has to use the old wooden shafted from Caddyshack Billy Baru. If that is your putter,
Billy,
you have no choice.
Billy.
Yep,
Billy.
I think it'd be a lot more fun.
That's kind of a fun little a way to do it. Yeah. That everybody has to have a Billy Baru in the bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I had to go to the mallet. I had the yips for a long time, and I have to use a mallet putter. I don't have a long putter, but I have to have the heavy weighted putter. I don't think I would. The old Scotty Cameron putters. I don't think I could putt well with that.
I found out my putting issue with missing short putts. I would always miss them inside to the left, and I found out Jane Pullman actually is who showed me one time. She's a Nebraska women's stroke play, match play, whatever champion, all the way back to when she was a junior, and all through whatever. And she won however many senior championships. But she lines me up differently, and it was all where my eye placement was, and all of a sudden I could putt again. So
did I ever tell you that I played in the club championship once with Tim Miles, and I had a 5-foot putt? He said, "That's good," and I go, "Tim, you can't give me that. We're playing against everyone, not just you and me." And he goes, "Okay." And I have a 3-foot putt. And he says, "That's good." And I go, "Tim, I have to putt it. We're playing against everyone." Finally, it was a 2-foot putt. And he picked it up and threw it at me. But I won by 2 shots, so it was okay.
There you go.
It was okay. I want to play a little game with Mike Melby, former voice of the Lincoln Stars. I read the quote. You guess who said the particular sports statement.
Okay.
It's related to sports. It's not.
Well, I was going to say it could get really interesting then.
They said it. You guess who they are. There are 49 states by my count that play football. I think it's interesting that we're the only state that I'm aware of where there's an investigation. Who said that?
We're the only state. Okay, so there's it, and you're not going to tell me who the investigation is by? It's sports related.
Probably the NCAA.
Okay, if it's NCAA and we're the only state. The only thing that comes to mind.
Oh, actually, it's not the NCAA that's doing this investigation, I don't believe. Okay. But it's related to sports.
Okay. The only thing I could think that, and it just because it's kind of fresh in mind because it involves Aaron Eulis, is gambling.
Yes.
And Iowa State. So I'm going to go either Fran McCaffrey or Kirk Ferentz.
Kirk Ferentz. Ding, ding,
really?
Ding, ding, ding. It's Kirk Ferentz that said that. He's famous for saying stuff. You know, you always look at him and think he doesn't say much, but sometimes he says some snide things. Like he said some snide things about, like he never liked Scott Frost. And
PJ
would
Fleck
say
did.
some.
Oh,
yeah,
wait.
PJ Fleck. Yeah. Oh, PJ Fleck would say some that I could say. I could see PJ Fleck saying something like that as well. But yeah, that's what Kirk Ferentz said about, and he's probably right. Actually, I mean, there are 50 states. There's a lot of states that have sports gambling. Why is Iowa and Iowa State the only two that they've found that have players? Because you think that those are the only players betting on sports?
Well,
in college football and basketball.
But again, I mean, are they the only two schools or this little ring that have been publicly accused? And are there other investigations going on? That's where I mean, it's like you don't know that there's not. So,
well, regardless, Kirk Ferentz can get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. But that's every day of the year. Kirk Ferentz can get off my lawn.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Did you see this? The Iowa women are trying to set a hoops record. You know, Nebraska is about to set a sports record for women attendance of all. I mean, they're going to get packed 90,000 into Memorial Stadium to watch a volleyball game. Iowa is trying to do something similar. The women at Iowa are trying to pack 69,000 into Kinnick Stadium for a game versus DePaul. I don't know what day they're doing that, but
That's
versus DePaul. The current record is 29,619, 2002 UConn versus OU. Do you think that they just saw that Nebraska was doing this and they just, well, we should do something similar?
I completely think that is 100% the case, but I don't fault them for it. I whatever, man. I mean, celebrate.
I think they're a
women's
bunch
sports.
of copycats, and I don't like it.
I don't either, but I do like it because it's Caitlin Collins, is it? Or what's the
Clark?
Caitlin Clark. She's like a transcendent player. And when you have somebody like that, the thing is, having a volleyball match, I don't know, August 30th in the Midwest. Granted, you can get some rain. There could be some wind. I get all of that. Having a basketball game during the regular season, which is when this is going to be, that doesn't start until, I don't know, the second week of November, seems like a pretty big gamble that the game is going to be able to take place. Or, I mean, realistic. What are you going to do if it's 27 degrees with a 15-mile-an-hour wind?
I'm really worried about the weather for the Nebraska volleyball game.
Oh, same here.
I mean, I hope it goes well, but what if it's a day like today? And today was a lot of rain. Last time I checked, there's been a lot of rain, 7 inches of it, just in July alone. So I really hope that'll work out. But almost everything all the time works out for John Cook. So
true.
It just seems like the gods are always on his side. So it'll work out perfectly. What's on the finish line tonight?
Finish line tonight, we are honored. We were going to have Racine and Nate Thompson. Racine is the co-owner of Eagle Raceway, along with her father, Roger Hayden. They're going to be, and we're going to talk a little demo derby as well, because I think Nate is involved with some demo derby stuff. But Eagle, what they've got coming up for the remainder of this season, we're proud to have them on board as a sponsor of the finish line. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the biggest race that sprint cars have on the planet each and every year that took place last night in Knoxville, Iowa. I was there, and we'll go through everything that happened with it. And then we're going to promote next week's guest, Jade Avedizian. She is one of the best drivers out there. She's 16 years old. She's from Oklahoma, and she knows how to wheel a midget. She is driving in the Extreme Outlaw Midget Series and was leading the points until a couple of bad nights earlier this week. But she's kind of tearing it up. She's driving the Mobile 171, and we're going to have her on for an hour next week.
I'll listen on the way home. I love the show. The finish line is coming up next. 18 days till kickoff. Nebraska versus Minnesota. But we'll be back next Sunday night at 5 o'clock. Mike, thanks for the time.
Heck yeah.
I'll listen on the drive home. The finish line is next.
The Nebraska Lottery's Powerball First Millionaire of the Year promotion is back. Until August 14th, buy a Powerball with Power Play and Double Play ticket, and you could be one of 15 winners of $1,000. You'll also be entered to win a trip to New York City for New Year's Eve and a chance at $1 million. So visit your nearest Nebraska Lottery retailer today and buy a ticket for a chance at $1,000. Powerball top prize odds 1 in 292 million.
The Nebraska Lottery offers up a lot of fun with a variety of daily games like Nebraska Pick 3, 2x2, and My Day. How much fun, you ask? Think of it like riding a roller coaster. Sitting next to your favorite rock star. Or discovering a bunch of cash under your seat.
Yeah!
Sound fun? Then play today.
Nebraska Pick 3, 2x2, and My Day top prize odds vary by